with it. We back at it.
Hey, you were saying, hey, Pop, you wore that same shirt the last time. You know, it's my favorite shirt. That's what it is.
Hey, you know what, Pop? You know what's funny about this is that most of our people are listeners. They don't even watch the podcast. So the fact that you had to, it's okay. I was gonna let it slide. You know what I'm saying? Until you brought it up, but it's okay.
Oh man, okay, cool. So how you doing today, man?
Man, we're doing good. We're doing good. And man, Pop, can we just be honest with them?
Yeah. Holla at him.
Yo, we bashing content. All right, this is what it is. You know, I changed my shirt. We just got done with another podcast episode. This is the same day, so nothing has changed because we like to keep it as real and authentic as possible on the podcast. But that means. What that means is we get to bring you some cool guests, people that we get to meet along the way. But Pop, before I get too far into it, how you doing, man?
Yep, hanging in there, still grinding, putting some fingers to the keyboards in between these episodes and whatnot. So it's all good though. I'm excited though. I'm excited to learn. Because that's what's really awesome about this podcast is sometimes not only the people that are listening to us are learning, hey, but I'm learning at the same time, and that's what's phenomenal. So having this guest on right now, man, I'm excited.
Yeah, and I'm also excited. Like you said, when we talked about just staying in being a student of life, so to speak. How cool was it to have Chris on the podcast, man?
That was cool. That was cool. Yeah.
Mentor well.
Yes, that was awesome.
Yeah, to hear about the work that he's doing. I can't wait to introduce this next guest. He has some more wisdom, some knowledge to share, some information, and I believe he just dropped a book. So, we're getting it here. I want to give a round of applause for Sai.
What's up? What's up, fellow podcast listeners, podcast hosts out there, teachers, parents, kids, youth, everyone.
Everybody's getting it. Everybody's gonna hear from Sai today.
Hey, you got to Sai. You said you're down in South Carolina. You got to get the lingo right, man. Everybody.
I was in Atlanta, Charlotte, for a few years, so I'm used to the Southeast.
Oh, okay, you got it. That's what's up.
I love it. So, Sai, before we get too far off track, we'll go down a rabbit hole if we allow ourselves to do it. But man, introduce yourself for everybody. Like you said, everybody that's listening, man. Who is Sai, and what you got cooking up? What you up to, man?
Oh man, I feel like if you asked me this 3 months ago, it's different. If you asked me 6 months ago, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And I feel like that's the nature of who we are as people, and that should be, right? We're always changing, we're always growing. So now, in June 2025, so if anyone's listening in December 2025, it could be a different person, who knows, right? But for me right now, the three titles that resonate with me the most are author, educator, and coach. So those are the three things that resonate in that order, actually, right now.
I love it.
And like you alluded to, yes, I did just drop a new book, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon, called Self-Investor. Educator standpoint, I've been, for the last school year, I was a teacher in Algebra 2, teaching high school math. Got my degree in math, so finally put that to use. So when people ask, hey, how do you use your math degree? It's like, well, I used it as a teacher. And then, prior to that as well, I was, still practicing as a life and career coach, especially for youth and young adults. So those three things are how I would describe myself right now.
So question, Sai, you said, math, got your degree in math. And so where'd you go to college?
I was fortunate enough to go to University of Texas. So anyone's listening, hook 'em horns. We're making a run in the college football playoffs the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Sark making a run. So hopefully we can crack through and beat some of these top schools. But it was a pleasure and awesome time to be on the 40 acres in Austin.
So I'm assuming with you're teaching math in high school, because that's Algebra 2. I mean, hey, there's some geniuses out there. It could be middle school, but you never know. So high school.
Yeah, exactly. It was a private Catholic school out in Kansas City. That's where I'm from. And so I was working with a lot of Hispanic and African American students. And so shout out to Cristo Rey, Kansas City.
Nah.
You got to do that, man. You got to let them know. Shoot, you're representing
No.
a couple of states there. Yes, sir.
I love it.
Exactly.
Texas, man, so that's some camaraderie over there. They don't play about their football. They don't play about their just who in their community. So that's awesome, man. I didn't even know that about you, that you went over to the University of Texas. That's cool.
Appreciate them. It's a religion down there. The religion down there. So be careful.
For sure, 100%. I was gonna say something about, like, you know what, these Texas fans don't play. You know what, I'm gonna just retract my statement.
Keep we don't want no problems.
Right, 100%. Man, so Sai, so you went from, because we talked and I got to hear a little bit about your story. So you went from a life coach to a teacher, and you still have those those roles and those titles you hold near and dear to your heart. But now you're an author, and I don't want to out this. So tell me if this is you put the education to the side for now, educator title for the side right now. You're not in schools, you're not teaching, but you are coaching and you have a book, and you're focusing mainly on those two things. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah. So I mean, it's yeah, like right now, I kind of think of it myself right now as I'm on a mission to help youth and young adults become self-investors. And so, you know, we can get into what that means, but for me, self-investor is someone who invests in others to invest in themselves, to help themselves. And so one of the big things that I think about and, you know, have in the book is, it's like, I think we're in this like self-help industry, the self-care industry. And even like when you talk about investments, all those things are focused on themselves. So what I mean by that is, like, when you're talking about self-help, it's like, okay, how can I learn things for myself? How can I take care of myself? How can this money, when I put it into this investment vehicle, how can I get this return on investment, right? ROI. How can I make more money with the existing money, right? But for self-investments, is, you know, the phrase that I'm coming up with is, how do I invest in other people, bring that community and learn from other people, right? And that is a way to learn, right? So it's not necessarily a novel idea, but I think in this day and age, there's so much stuff out there of, you know, like podcasts, newsletters, articles, YouTube videos, books, courses, coaches, communities, like, and where do youth and young adults especially, where do they invest their time, money, and energy in, right? And so, like, navigating that landscape when we're bombarded with TikToks and Instagrams and YouTubes and shorts and reels, everything, right? And when all was bombarded, there's like no time to, like, what do I want, and how do those things that I want to invest in, how do those align with those things that I want? And so that's the overall mission. And so part of that is the book, right?
Yeah,
here.
there we go. Plug it.
Yeah. For all the people watching. But yeah, so that's the book piece, right? So introducing that concept and allowing people to read about it, you know, from a one-to-many standpoint, as I call it, so to the masses. And then
real quick, if I may interrupt you real quick,
Yeah.
I was just wondering, how did you then get to wanting to create a book? What experiences led you to say, hey, you know what, I just, you know, teaching is great, I've been helping a lot of young people in that manner, but I need to drop a book, drop some of this knowledge so people can, like, pick it up when they need. What got you there?
Yeah, a few things. I was not, if you told me I would have written a book when I graduated college or even high school, I've been like, no. I was like, I hate writing. You know, I don't want to write, you know, an introduction paragraph and 3 supporting paragraphs, and then, you know, here's a concluding.
Hey, you're doing good probably with the language arts and all that, because you said math. Look at you, 3 supporting paragraphs.
Exactly right. I'm like, you know, I think the way the world works is it's much more, you know, expansive than that specific style, right? But so, like, COVID actually, you know, despite the global difficulties and challenges people face, for me individually and personally, I felt it was a, you know, amazing personal growth period where I actually got into journaling. So I got my journal right here, one of my many journals. And that really got me to, like, okay, I was able to take time and space to actually reflect on my thoughts, my experiences, and actually understand my feelings, not just intellectualize my feelings, but start actually feeling the feelings and understanding the feelings, which is not my typical experience as a South Asian male.
Right.
And so that kind of laid the foundation for writing. Started a blog, created content. So that developed my voice a little bit more. So whether verbally, written, etc. And then I was publishing newsletters a couple, like 1-2 years ago, going in depth. And then I wrote about this concept, which is now the book, but it was initially actually supposed to be a newsletter. And I wrote the newsletter, and it was like 20,000 words long. And I was like, this is not a newsletter. This is way more than that.
Right.
So then I didn't publish it. I tucked it away, went through a few more iterations of it. I wrote it very technically initially. Then I got some feedback from people, and then I wrote it in a very narrative format. And then I combined the two in the next draft of it to actually combine my own story with like how I was able to invest in myself from the first investment that I made in myself of like $300 going to a conference and learning a few skills there, and then building on that, and then eventually working with coaches investing 4 figures in there. So that entire story of investing in myself and going along that path, but then also dropping some frameworks, some concepts, some ideas that people can use and vocabulary to use in their daily life, and that would instill the mindset. And so I wanted to share my story. That was one of the reasons, some of the reasons for the book are I wanted to share my story. I wanted to just write. I just love the process of writing now. And it's just like, and it wasn't like, hey, like I need to publish a book, but it's like, I just have enough content for a book. Let me just make a book, and then let's see what happens with it. So I'm kind of I'm in the launch process right now. And I love talking about it. I love sharing about it. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
I love hearing it. That's amazing. I love how the story started with I hated writing to now, hey, I love writing. Like this is what I do. This is what I love to do. And I love that you mentioned journaling. That's one of the things I've been utilizing more now. I wish I'd used it more when I was younger, when I was in middle and high school. But now it's one of those skills, those coping skills that I lean into more and often now. And it's cool that you mentioned journaling because we are sponsored by an app called Brighton, where Jeff Johnston, we had him on the podcast recently, and he got to share his app, which is not a journaling app, but a mental wellness app. But I use it for the journaling purposes. So it's definitely something that I love. I love a lot. So when you mentioned that, I was like, I got to make sure we shout out Brian on the podcast. You know how it goes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I'm wondering. So who's the book targeted towards?
Great question. So it's the subtitle is you can see it, the first book to read on your personal growth journey. So for the person who is just starting out, it's like, they see all these like tools, resources, apps, right? And so how do you actually make the most use out of them? Because you could journal all day, but you could still end up at square one. You could listen to all the YouTube videos, but you still feel more overwhelmed than when you began, right? And so it's like you have all this information, what I call mental potential energy, which is is self-help in my opinion.
That's good.
And how do you actually translate that to kinetic energy? How do you actually take that forward and translate that potential to kinetic energy? And so the person who is written for is the person who's starting out. So if you think about personal growth as an exercise or as a gym session, you can think of this book as the warm-up, the stretching, the 5-10 minute stretching beforehand, before you're actually benching and squatting and doing all that. Like, yes, read all the Atomic Habits, like use Brighton, use like all these things right there, listen to these podcasts, right? And before, to get the most out of them, read this book to give you the right framework of where those things fit into your, what I call the self-investment portfolio. So yeah, that's who it's geared towards. And most of the people that demographically fall into that are, youth and young adults. So, recent college grads, maybe even recent high school grads, depending on how much they've been exposed to and what their ambitions are. So that's usually the time frame. But, if you're 45, 50, 60, and you're starting out, like it's never too late.
Why not?
hundred
Yeah, you know
percent.
what's interesting about you saying, you know, kind of the information overload with so many opportunities to get or gain knowledge. I remember being in that space when I was in a transitional period, and I was just getting so much information from YouTube, TED Talks, master classes, and I'm just like, I mean, I'm getting all, I'm just absorbing, but I never got to the do. And I was getting caught up in, caught in just, oh, I'm just kicking all this information, but I didn't know like what to do with it. And I got all this information, and it was, I think Chris, our previous guest, was saying too, that sometimes, you know, you end up just wanting to do so much that you end up doing nothing. So it sounds like this might be leaning a little bit into that also conversation or steps or guides. Like, okay, yeah, you got all this information. What do I do, man? Like, is that connecting a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. And what came up for me is I talk about these vicious cycles. So on the positive, on the negative side, there's like the vicious cycles in whatever area that we're talking about, and on the positive side, there's virtuous cycles. And so what can happen is like self-help can be the great tool out there, right? But a lot of times, what I found myself in initially actually was a self-help vicious cycle where I would feel bad about myself. Like I wouldn't feel whole. I would feel lonely. Insert bad feeling. And then I would go to some information, some sort of book, some podcast, whatever, to fill that hole. Right. It's like, oh, like I feel smarter now. I feel better, but that's like on the surface level. I wasn't addressing the root issues. And so it's like we feel bad about ourselves. So then we seek something, and then there's like momentary pleasure. It's not the actual fulfillment, but it's the momentary external pleasure that we derive from, I learned something today about personal finance, or I learned something about a new perspective that I could have and use in my workplace, right? And so that there's that pleasure, so that it gives us that dopamine hit, and then okay, so then some time passes, and then we feel bad about ourselves again. Right. And then it's like, okay, what do we do when our brain feels bad? We go to self-help. Right. We go to information that makes us feel better. So we're stuck in this vicious cycle of like feeling bad, going to self-help, feeling bad, going to self-help. And it's also a very similar cycle for when like burnout can happen at the workplace or in our school lives, for youth and young adults, where it's like, I need to fill time, right? Like I think this like age of anxiety, I think is partly there because of we're not allowed to feel bored. Like it's constant dopamine. I'll say like dopamine addiction, perhaps constant stimulus. When I was at school, I would see students with one AirPod in, like even during class, and like walking the hallways. It's like you gotta have one. It's like so many stimulus coming in. So there's that action that we can get in this vicious cycle of an action that leads to burnout as well. And so it's just the awareness of these vicious cycles that happen in our life, and we need to step out of it to actually see that we're in it.
Yes.
Right. And so I'm just bringing awareness to that happens, and I'm not bringing shame to it, but it's like, hey, like let's talk about it. We're just bringing, first step is awareness, right? And then once we're aware of it, then we can address that. But like it's just becoming aware of those vicious cycles and eventually turning them into what I call virtuous cycles.
I love it. There's a couple of books that come to mind when I'm thinking when I was younger that I was forced to read. Next to that guy right there, every summer there was a book report that was due in my household, and one of the first books that he had me read was the Spark Inside, which was about, I don't know, I want to say like 50 pages. It was short read. Read it, and then after that it was 7 Habits of a Highly Effective Teenager that I read. And I remember when we had our conversation, Sai, you said this book is the precursor before you get into the 7 Habits of a highly effective teenager, so that you can, it sounds like, discern, and it sounds like you can how to apply this knowledge that you're getting from Stephen Covey. And then after that book, it was The Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, right? Like that was kind of like my gamut of self-help and learning. But I feel like it would have been dope to have a book that you're talking about that helped me also get that discernment and know how to apply what I was listening to or watching or reading so that I could apply it then and there, you know?
That's real dope. That makes sense.
So I love it.
Appreciate that. Yeah, Jamal, I feel like you're about to launch into something.
Questions.
Oh no, yeah. No, so I'm wondering, like, yeah, when you think about the book, what might be the top 3 things in there that you're hoping people to glean? Or what are the 2 main, or the 3, 2 to 3, 4 if you want to, whatever, points that are really our listeners should hear, so they can be like, oh, okay, I see where he's coming from.
Yeah, and by the way, if anyone listening, I'm not just hey, this is a long advertisement for a book. No, but it's I think and talking about these things, that's bringing the concepts that I've thought about, but actually, convert. The book is a result of all these conversations and experiences that I've had, but a lot of people have had, and I've had with other people, right? And so, I think it's great to go into the actual content and topics of the book, right? So a couple of things, 2-3 things that come up for me as takeaways, because I think everyone will have different takeaways. One of the main reasons that I initially wrote the book and that I found is one of the mistakes, I'll say, or maybe ignorance, not a positive or negative connotation, just an ignorance that youth and young adults may have coming into investing in themselves, is over-investing on what I call 1-to-many and 1-to-0 self-investment portfolio assets, like asset classes. So fancy terminology maybe, but what I mean by that is, so 1-to-many and 1-to-0. 1-to-many are the things that like books, right? A book is a 1-to-many thing. Like I produce it, and then anyone in the world could buy this book. So I've written it as a 1-to-many thing. A podcast is 1-to-many because it's distributed to everyone, right? An online course could be a 1-to-many thing if you just buy the product and it's sent to your email, right? So that's a 1-to-many thing. A 1-to-0 might be a tough relation to grasp, but what I mean by that is something like journaling or working out, where it's an individual activity, right? You're doing it on your own, right? So self-help and self-care overinvest on those 2 asset classes of 1-to-many and 1-to-0. We overinvest our self-investment dollars. It's like, hey, I'm going to invest in myself, but then we spend too much of that time and money on those 1-to-many and 1-to-0. What I saw for myself, when I saw the greatest growth for myself, it was when I invested in the 1-to-few and 1-to-1 asset classes. It was when I was in small group communities, group cohorts, where I had direct interaction with the coach or the creator, whoever it was, because I'm getting their time and energy. I'm paying for their service, their expertise, their experience, right? And you take that a step further with 1-to-1. I worked with a few 1-to-1 coaches on business side, emotionally, doing a lot of inner work. And that's when I saw a lot of growth as well. And so one of the big topics about this book is the progression in this journey of investing in myself. It started out actually a lot of 1-to-many and 1-to-0, and that's fine. And that's actually a great place to start.
Right.
But as we develop, if we can shift our money, energy, and time allocations of investing in ourselves into those 1-to-few and 1-to-1, the groups it's very targeted. If you want to be a writer, right, then invest in yourself in terms of going to a writing retreat specifically with someone that you followed on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok that you have this level of trust with, right? If you want to be a coach, for example, maybe in addition to maybe the large coaching certification schools out there, maybe work with an individual coach who maybe has their own style and that you want to learn from them, like you really resonate with them. And then as you do that, I think that one of the other big takeaways from writing this book was we are taught in I would say capitalistic society, that the main thing that we need to be focusing on when investing in something or even ourselves like this is look at the offer. And even, for like Alex Hermosi, for anyone who knows him, right? He's like $100 million offers, right? Offers is like the first thing as a business owner. But what about the perspective of the customer, the consumer, right? The self-investor? I would say the offer is not the first, second, or maybe even third thing to be looking at when you're investing in yourself. And when you're especially looking at one-to-few and one-to-one investments, like a coach or a small group community, the main thing that you should be looking at is not the what, the where, the when, the why, but I would say the who. The who is the most important. There's a book by Dan Sullivan called Who Not How, right? And so it's like, and so if you apply that to investing in yourself, don't look at, all right, it's a race to the bottom if you're looking for the most commoditized kind of like product or service out there, right? You want to invest in the person who you resonate with the most. In, okay, like I want to work with that person, even though their offer might not be the most ideal for me right now. I'm willing to pay that because I know I trust them. And so at the end of the day, it's really a game of trust. So those are like the two of the main takeaways that I don't think people have thought about before when they're investing in themselves.
Yeah, that's deep.
That's good. No, because that's one of the things I've been sharing a lot of, and I'm glad that you gave it words, because I always say, one of the cheat codes that I had when I started to build up to it alongside my dad was I had a mentor the whole way. Like, and luckily, typically you would have to pay somebody to get the kind of knowledge I was getting. But since my mentor was just also believed in me and I was helping him out doing some things, he helped me in turn. And he was like, yo, all the knowledge I'm giving to you is free. Usually I charge about $5,000 for this type of stuff, but I like you and I see where you're going and I believe in you. So let's make it happen. And I think what you're giving is, that one-to-one is highlighting that there's sometimes those opportunities where people see it in you as a youth and be like, I believe where you're going. You're not going to have to pay for this, but you have to show up and you have to do these things and whatever the case may be. But the fact that sometimes I always tell young people, you might have to pay for it. There's some things that non-negotiables where you're going to have to front the $250 at 18. $250 to me was like, that's a whole lot. Hold on. Where am I going to find that money? But you get that return, like you said, that return on investment, but also that knowledge and expertise and experience. The experience is key. So, Sai, what you got going, man, is amazing. I love this.
Well, what I was going to say that I appreciate too about what you're doing, and listening to you also, I can see where your mathematics and the way that you process things kind of aligns with just the whole math thing. But the one to many, one to zero, one to few, one to one makes a lot of sense, especially when we talk about where our society is now, especially for young people, and the one to many, right? I mean, they're on social media and they're not being truly fulfilled. And they think, and they don't know what that void is because they're looking for that like, that heart, that and those comments from people they don't even know, and it's not valuable feedback. These just random people. But when you go from the one to many to the one to few, oh, wait a minute, there's something here that I can really and I forget what you said. It's feeling fulfilled, truly fulfilled, right? And not just temporary. But even more so, even with that one-to-one, because our youth are disconnecting themselves from connectedness with people. And they've made the mistake that connectedness is through this device that we have with us 24/7. So and then when you said the 1 to 0, man, that's so true, right? You can only spend so much time by yourself and hoping to be uplifted. So I like it, man. It's the way you frame it. That's cool. I like it. I see you, man.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it, Jamal.
So if you need us to go on tour with you, we'll definitely hype you up and get this thing going.
I mean, that's and that's one of the other things what I've thought about is like, I think because I know you guys are speakers, right? But sometimes you like feed off of each other, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so like when there's individual speakers, it could be if you're not like trained or seasoned, it's like where do you bring that energy yourself if you don't have it? But then when you feed off of other people, it's like it's that much more natural. And so even having like a almost like a touring group, but it's like, you know, like you just having a host or a facilitator type of moderator, like as a speaker, like I've thought about that as like, man, like if there's a way to redefine the speaking industry as a whole, it's like, why not just have like a facilitator, but also the main speaker, so you're not listening to the same voice over and over again, right? But that's the topic for another day.
No, I love it. So when you started going on this this life coaching and coaching and authoring and being an author, what was the reaction from your parents when you told them that this was something that you were going to pursue?
Yeah, it's mixed, I'll say. And so my parents have always invested in me from the beginning. Time, money, energy, sacrifices, moving countries, immigrating to the US. So I owe everything to them, to my family. And I obviously and always know that they have my best interest in heart.
Right.
And sometimes I disagree, right? It's very natural, right? And so what they feel as, I would say one of their highest values is like security and stability. And for me, I've maybe taken that for granted, where I have this floor, this stability, you know, security blanket, right? And so I want to use that security blanket to maybe take risks I maybe wouldn't have taken if I needed to build that stability myself. And so I've kind of viewed it as like, if my parents wanted to provide a better life, that I could go even further than they did, it's my moral and, you know, moral duty, my obligation to do that, and to maybe take those risks to go even higher, compared to maybe instead of just a step up, it's like, maybe what if we take the elevator up, right? At least the escalator, right? At least
Right.
And so the reaction from my parents as I left my full-time job to go to a startup where I took a pay cut. So went from a consulting position to a startup. That was a pay cut. My parents told me to strongly reconsider it.
Right.
When I left my full-time job at that startup, actually, to then go coaching full-time, and then I moved back home to Kansas City, they were like, less. Yeah, exactly. Think about that. They were a little bit more, you know, able to get on board since I was coming back home and I could, you know, spend time with them, right? But from a career standpoint, it's like, why so abruptly, right? And fair questions, right? And so like that was when I realized, okay, like there's gonna be external forces, no matter how far or how close. It could be random people on social media leaving comments, or it could be as close as your parents, right? Whoever those people are. Some people, like, you know that they have their best intention for you,
Right.
But at the end of the day, if you have built the skills and the tools, the ability to know yourself and to trust your intuition, trust your gut, and to allow it to sit in that silence, to feel it, what is the right decision? Well, some decisions aren't made with the pros and cons list. Some decisions are made in your heart first, and you move forward with that, right? And so like for me, those decisions, some people would make it more logically. I've transitioned more from this logical math-based mindset, let's say. I've merged more of this intuition, feeling based, like, oh, what am I feeling? Let's go 100% into that. And so their reactions have been mixed, but in the end, they've been super supportive of the book, investing in me to help get it published as well. And so like, and they're talking about it, they're, you know, sharing it with their family, you know, their friends, etc. And so like and so we're moving together, not just individually, but as a family. And I'm investing in my family energetically now. So yeah, for anyone who's like, man, like I feel like I'm making a decision that's going against my parents, that's okay. That's like, sometimes that is almost necessary. Now I can't. Now here's the meta thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to give a blank statement advice of like, hey, like if you're feeling conflicted with your parents and you're disagreeing, like do this or do that.
Right.
This is a podcast, right? This is a one-to-many tool, right?
Yes.
But if I or Zion or you, Jamal, or anyone else was coaching you individually, you can provide a context that can elicit the best advice or the best questions to ask yourself. So that's when you work with one-to-few or one-to-one. All right.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I love how you took the framework and then just integrated it here live and direct to show them how it works. But man, dude,
so
Sai, man, this is awesome. I love it. I love what you got going on. I love your energy towards it.
Thank you, man.
You already know you got Up to It support all the way. And where can they get the book, by the way, Sai? If they were looking for it, if they're looking to follow you for coaching, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So Google my name. As Shaq says, Google. No, I'm not there yet. No, I'm Sai Vasam is my name. Self Investor is the name of the book. People can buy it on Amazon. I'm looking to get it on more distribution platforms too, but right now it's on Amazon. And then for me specifically, you can follow me on LinkedIn. Is the most active place that I'm on. I have posted stuff on my website, saivasam.com. So just my first name and last name.com. As well, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. I have stuff on there, but the primary places to get the book, Amazon, Self Investor, and Sai Vasam on LinkedIn.
I love it, man.
That's cool, man. Thank you.
It's been amazing to have you on the podcast, and I'm glad that we got you on. This was in the making since like for 2 months, so I'm glad we're able to make it happen finally. And man, I love your energy. I love what you're bringing to the table for our youth and our parents, so that we can help them just be as productive as they can and awesome members of societies, because that's what matters, man. That's really what matters at the end of the day.
Exactly.
I appreciate you both for having me on. It's, I feel so energized. I think and that's a sign of a great conversation where you feel more energized afterwards than when you came in. So for any youth and parents, it's
the one to few. It's the one to few. That's right. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. One to few.
I love it. Well, Sai, we want to let you get up out of here, man. Thank you so much again.
I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thanks, Sai.
Ooh, man, that's another good dude.
Getting nuggets. You know, it's really interesting. And I don't think Sai and Chris know each other, do they?
No, but they got it now.
Yeah, they got it now. We got to put them together because he mentioned Dan Sullivan's book, and so did Chris.
I caught that one.
And these far apart. Don't even know.
We're talking about Kansas and Canada.
Right? There's something going on here, man. Like, hey, listeners, we be dropping a couple of guests that come on, be dropping some nuggets. Pick it up a little bit and run with it. Yes, sir.
Man, I'm excited.
I'm feeling good.
Before we get up out of here, you know what we got to do? We got to let them know that they can text us at 904-867-4466. Remember, there's going to be numbers that pop into your text body paragraph thing before you type. Leave those numbers there. If you erase them, we won't get your text message. If we're not ignoring you, we just don't see them. So we want to hear from you. If you want to hear more from Sai and you're like, I love what he got going on, I want to get a book, text us and we'll get in contact with Sai and we'll make sure everything's good, that you get your book. But also, if you have questions for Sai, you have questions for us, Chris, Jeff, whoever guest you've seen or you heard, Brian, always text us. And again, that's 904-867-4466. And before we get up out of here, you can follow us on Instagram at UpToItAZ. But if you're like, you know what, Z, Jamal, y'all got that energy, I need some keynote speakers, man, go ahead and visit our website at uptoit.club. That's uptoit.club. Dad, hit the dance for them real quick so they know that it is not .com. It's a club because it's a party atmosphere. It's the educational turn up. But yo, we're gonna get up out of here. We hope y'all have a great rest of your day. Pop, anything you want to say to them before we leave?
Hey, y'all just do it and do it positively.
There we go. We out.